Hari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Okay, so we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, verses 47 and 48. Tadyanodriktaya bhaktya. Okay.
Oh, it's which one? 1.15.47.
Yeah. So do I just recite the, oh, thank you. Do I just write do I recite the first one and then we repeat the second one, or how do you do it when there's two verses?
Yeah, you can recite. It's the same. You can recite all of it.
All of it 3 times? Okay. Okay, is everybody ready?
Yes.
Tadyanodriktaya bhaktya. Vishudadishana pare. Asmin narayana pare. Ekantamata yogatim. Avapurduravapam te. Asadbir vishayatmabihi. Virudha kalmasastanam. Virajanatmanaivahi. Adyanodriktaya bhaktya. Vishuddhadishana pare. Tasmin narayana pade. Ekantamata yogatim. Avapurduravapam te. Asadvir vishayatmabihi. Virudha kalmasastanam. Virajanatmanaivahi. Yeah, let's repeat.
Tadyanodriktaya bhaktya.
Tadyanodriktaya bhaktya.
Vishuddhadishana pare.
Vishuddhadishana pare. Tasmin narayana pade.
Ekantamata yogatim.
Ekantamata yogatim.
Avapurduravapam te.
Avapurduravapam te.
Asadvirvishayatmadi.
Asadvir vishayatmavihi. Viruta kalmashastanam. Virajanatmanaivahi. Tat, that. Dhyana, positive meditation. Utkriktaya, being freed from. Bhaktya, by devotional attitude. Vishuddha, purified. Dishana, by intelligence. Hare, unto the transcendence. Tasmin, in that. Narayana, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Hare, unto the lotus feet. Ekantamatayaha, those who are fixed in the Supreme, who is one. Gatim, destination. Avapu, attained. Duravapam, very difficult to obtain. Te, by them. Sadvi, by the materialists. Vishaya Asmibihi, absorbed in material needs, Viruta, washed off, Kalmasa, material contaminations, Sthanam, abode, Virajana, without material passion, Atmana Eva, by the self-same body, he certainly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thus, by pure consciousness, due to constant devotional remembrance, they attain the spiritual sky, which is ruled over by the Supreme Narayan, Lord Krishna. This is attained only by those who meditate upon the one Supreme Lord without deviation. This abode of the Lord Sri Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan, cannot be attained by persons who are absorbed in the material conception of life. But the Pandavas, being completely washed of all material contamination, attained that abode in their very same bodies. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, a person freed from the three modes of material qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, and situated in transcendence, can reach the highest perfection of life without change of body. Srila Sanatana Goswami in his Hari Bhakti Vilas says that a person, whatever he may be, can attain the perfection of a twice-born Brahmana by undergoing the spiritual disciplinary actions under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, exactly as a chemist can turn gunmetal into gold by chemical manipulation. It is therefore the actual guidance that matters in the process of becoming a Brahmana, even without change of body, or in going back to Godhead without change of body. Srila Jiva Goswami remarks that the word he used in this connection positively affirms this truth, and there is no doubt about this factual position. In Bhagavad Gita 1426, the Bhagavad Gita 1426 also affirms this statement of Srila Jiva Goswami, when the Lord says that anyone who executes devotional service systematically, without deviation, can attain the perfection of Brahman by surpassing the contamination of the three modes of material nature. And when the Brahman platform is still more advanced by the self-same execution of devotional service, there is no doubt at all that one can attain the supreme spiritual planet, Goloka Vrindavan, without change of body, as we have already discussed in connection with the Lord's returning to his abode, without a change of body. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauradvise Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jesh, could you pass me my bag really quick? Thank you. My notes are in here. So we have here a verse which is very reminiscent of a Bhagavad Gita verse in which Krishna says, Abhyasa yoga yuktena, chittasa nanyagamina, purusham paramam divyam yat partanu chintayam, where he says that by constantly meditating upon me and undeviatingly remembering me in all things, then one can actually attain me. Krishna says that. So similarly here it's being said that, where is it? Yeah, it's very similar. Thus by pure consciousness, due to constant devotional remembrance, the Pandavas attained the supreme destination. They went back to Godhead. So one word that's very significant here is dhyana, which means positive meditation. This is what the Pandavas were engaged in. And we see that the Pandavas were not just, sitting down in yogic trance, doing nothing, meditating upon Krishna. They were engaged in practical service activities in and in this way, remembering Krishna at all times. For example, Arjuna, he was wanting to go and do this. He wanted to go to the forest and kind of sit down and engage in the process of dhyana yoga, but according to uh, his his duties in this world, that would not have fit with him as a kshatriya. Actually, he was engaged in an activity which doesn't seem so spiritual or peaceful. He was engaged in killing. He was fighting on a battlefield. He was cutting people's heads off. Um, but what he was doing is he was actually thinking of Krishna while doing that, because that was actually his appointed service. A pure devotee does not uh, he does not really discriminate whether he wants to or doesn't want to do a certain service. He does it because he knows it'll please Krishna. And so Arjuna, by dint of his devotional service, his undeviating meditation on Krishna, um, Krishna actually he took a subservient role because he was so pleased with Arjuna. Arjuna and him had such a close relationship. Um, Krishna was his friend. They spoke together, they laughed together, they talked together, they hung out on the same bed. Um, that's a very exalted position that Arjuna was in. It's due to his remembrance of Lord Krishna. Um, Similarly, King Yudhishthir, he was always wrapped in attention in meditation on Lord Krishna, and he had such an undeviating mood of service towards Krishna that he attempted what was almost impossible for many kings of that age, the most complex, difficult to perform Vedic sacrifice, the Rajasuya Yagya, where he was supposed to, at least a king who wants to engage in this sacrifice has to be the undisputed and accepted ruler of the entire world. So he literally had to get every single king to agree that he would be the ruler. That's definitely no easy task, I would think, especially with so many demonic kings on the earth 5,000 years ago. Um, so he did this, and actually he didn't do it for his own personal aggrandizement. He didn't want to. He could care less whether he was the king of the world or whether he was in the forest, uh, engaging in austerities. He did it because he wanted to glorify Krishna and make Krishna famous all around the world. And because of King Yudhishthir's great devotion and always meditating on Lord Krishna, although he was engaged in uh, activities which are quite material, dealing with money, women, the management of not only like a household but the entire world basically. Because of that, he was actually unaffected by any material contamination, which of course is impossible because he's a pure devotee. But he's a great example for us to follow in our worldly duties, and also the Sankirtan book distributors are also making Krishna famous throughout the world by distributing transcendental literature about Krishna, by chanting his holy names in public. Hare Krishna is a very recognized name throughout the world, and especially in India, obviously, as we know. Um, but yeah, and definitely nobody made Krishna more famous than Srila Prabhupada. Um, so yeah, and you can see, of course, Srila Prabhupada had that same mood of always thinking about Lord Krishna, meditating on the instructions of Krishna coming through his spiritual master. And probably the most famous example of a devotee meditating on Krishna and thus pleasing him is Queen Kunti. She says in her prayers that at least this is when she was living after she spent so long in the forest and she was living in the royal palace and Krishna was leaving, and she said that I I long to see all those sufferings and calamities that we experienced in the forest, because by undergoing those activities, I was able to always meditate on you, Krishna, and take shelter in you. So of course, Queen Kunti is also pure devotee, but you could think any normal person, if they were living in a royal palace, it might be a bit difficult for them to see a need to take shelter of Krishna, because there's not so much pain and suffering as a royal person. Um, but somebody who's engaged in somebody who's in a dangerous position has a lot of impetus to take shelter of Krishna because they can they can see through their great disparity and helplessness that they are not powerful enough to help themselves because they've ended up in this hopeless situation, and others are they don't have as much power to help them as well. Um, it said in Srimad Bhagavatam that like one's family members, one's relatives, one's mother and father, they're all fallible soldiers. Yeah, they can't actually offer us supreme protection, even though that's what we think when we're younger. But as you get older, you see that, my parents can't protect me from everything. Neither can I. So one has to seek some higher level of shelter and protection. And if one is intelligent and uh, one can see that actually it's God is the only person that can actually protect me because he's all powerful, he is omnipotent. And so yeah, and we can see that in the life of a devotee, one who is in a very comfortable situation, it might be very difficult for them to kind of cultivate some inspiration to become more serious about their practice. They might become complacent and just kind of keep going on how they're doing, and thus they are still getting benefit, but they might not make any more advancements. One should actually be willing to take risks for Krishna, risks to expand the Sankirtan movement. We should be a little bit in discomfort, um, you know, in order to do this. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, he is, he accepted any condition of life. He wouldn't care to be expanding the Sankirtan mission in the lower planets and the hellish planets. He didn't care of any nice, comfortable situation. He was living in the most horrible places in New York, the ghettos, and crazy people trying to kill him. So we can learn from this situation. It doesn't mean that we should go and we should voluntarily seek out danger and then think that, this will help me become more Krishna conscious. That's not true. Um, we should we should just see like what is necessary to expand the movement, um, and just go for it, regardless of whatever it may take, because it's a great battle that we're fighting actually against the material energy, against our own mind and senses. So if we're actually standing up and fighting, then we'll see that it's not so comfortable, and we have to dig deeper, become more dependent on the mercy of Guru, Krishna, the Vaishnavas, in order to make further progress. And and ultimately, the Bhagavatam says, "Tapyante lokatapena sarva prayesho janaha purushasya paramaradhanam taddi purushasya kilatmanaha." That the great personalities of this world, they actually take up voluntary suffering in order to relieve the suffering of others. And this is the greatest way of worshiping Krishna, because it's showing Krishna that we're actually serious about, about advancing, about pleasing him, about engaging in devotional service. We're showing our sincerity in that way. So the Pandavas exhibited all these great qualities through their devotion, their constant remembrance of him. The Pandavas are so exalted, actually. Even Narada Muni glorified them in 7th canto, saying that you're so fortunate that Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, was actually living in your home as a human being, and he was acting as your friend, your relative, your order carrier sometimes, your servants, so you should be um, quite uh, pleased by that, by knowing that. And so ultimately, the process of Krishna consciousness allows us to do this. We can live with Krishna, we can speak with Krishna, we can talk with him, we can play with him, eat with him, have a direct personal relationship with Krishna as we do with each other, actually. Yeah, the association with devotees is like the first step in developing a relationship with Krishna, because a relationship with devotees, with our spiritual master, that's it also dictates our relationship with Krishna. How we treat devotees is also how we'll treat Krishna. And ultimately, this process is dictated by how much affection or love have we developed in our own hearts for Krishna, for devotees. Um, there's that verse, Pramanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santasa Daiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shyama Sundaram Yam Shyama Sundaram Chintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That those who are santas, santa in Latin means saint. In Spanish, the word is santo. So the saints are always seeing Krishna everywhere, and they're seeing Krishna within their own hearts because they've developed because they're seeing with eyes that are anointed with an ointment of love, basically. They're tinged with love. That's the only way Krishna will actually reveal himself to us, to the great saints. It's yeah, because Krishna, he's present. Brahma Samhita also says that Krishna is present within the atom. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying he's present within our own hearts. But why don't I see him in those places? Um, Krishna is there, but he's not revealing himself to me. Um, and ultimately, it's because I do have to develop this love for Krishna. I have to please him, and through his being pleased, we can hope that he will reveal himself to us. And the great saints, they're actually, it's not that they, I mean, they're seeing Krishna at every moment and everything. Many people would ask Srila Prabhupada, like, have you seen God? But it's not that Srila Prabhupada, like, saw God once. He's always seeing him. And that's another point, like, people, like, saying that Krishna was just a regular person, Krishna is impersonal, Krishna is this, that, people not recognizing Krishna as God. This was actually like such a great offense to even Srila Prabhupada, because if you think about it, like Krishna is so close with Srila Prabhupada, they have such a close relationship. For somebody to say that Krishna doesn't even exist, I mean, imagine that. That's really something. Um, oh, yeah. So this verse is saying that we should, at the very least, if we don't have love yet, we can practice thinking about Krishna. And at first, we won't be able to think of Krishna at all times, but we should practice as much as we can to remember Krishna throughout our service. We shouldn't serve mechanically. We shouldn't chant mechanically. We should be thinking, I'm actually doing this for Krishna. In pretty much the entire process um, of Vaidhi Bhakti, of going through this really dark stage of Anartha Nivritti, actually it's my service to Krishna to go through it, to suffer through all the difficulties. It's my service to Krishna to attain pure devotional service. I should I should always be thinking, how can I, attain this stage? How can I chant purely? How can I organize my life in such a way that I'm always going closer to this goal? And if we're thinking in this way, through our sincerity, Krishna will be pleased. We can only hope. And at this point, we might have contaminated consciousness, but we can actually become purified by the process of hearing, the process of chanting. Of course, chanting is our main method in this Kali Yuga age, as Lord Chaitanya has introduced it. Um, the process of just chanting the holy names of God may seem very simple, but it's the easiest process to actually attain pure love of God. There's one kind of idea, society, that which is easy to obtain, people might not be so after it. So people don't actually believe that by chanting Hare Krishna one can attain pure spiritual life. It's like, say for example, you have like a car dealership which is gonna sell Lamborghinis for $1, only only from 12 to 1 p.m. on one day of the week. Probably not so many people will come, even if they're actually true. Probably nobody will come actually because they won't believe them. There's this idea that spiritual life should be like difficult. I should have to like engage in such serious austerities, and I should give up and renounce the entire world. But it's actually not like that. It's you just have to be sincere and try to chant every single day, follow these four regular principles, follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, and you'll actually attain it. Our spiritual life is our own responsibility. There will always be mercy from Guru, Krishna, and the Vaishnavas, but we have to have the sincerity to practice seriously. And ultimately, we are not as exalted as the Pandavas, but we do have the opportunity presented to us that we can attain the same level of devotion as them. So that's very encouraging. And I will just read one quote of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami speaking about Srila Prabhupada, like some Prabhupada Leela. And I'll just end with that. One second. Yeah. Okay, so Jayapataka Swami says, once Srila Prabhupada was giving a lecture about how we have to be cent% Krishna conscious. He was ramming home the point that we have to surrender to Krishna 100%. At the end of class, the devotees were serious. They were looking down thinking, who can come up to the standard of complete surrender? As if he could read their minds, Prabhupada relaxed his mood a little bit and said, if you could be 90% Krishna conscious, then you can also go back to Godhead. He was on a large, high Vyasasan, 4 feet in the air, and had to go down some steps to get off the Vyasasan. As he started down, he said, even if you are 80% surrendered, Krishna will still take you. Then he got off the Vyasasan and started walking away. His chadar was flowing behind him, dragging on the ground. He stopped, looked at the devotees and said, even if you are 70% Krishna conscious, Krishna still will take you. He threw his chadar over his shoulder and walked off with his head high. So we should aspire to be 100% Krishna conscious, of course. But Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing how merciful Krishna is. So if we're just serious and just keep, for every day for the rest of our lives, chant at least 16 rounds, follow the four regular principles, and aspire to follow the great souls. And even if we're not able to become completely Krishna conscious, Krishna will still allow us to go back home, back to Godhead. Yeah. So, okay, that's all I have to say now. Yeah. Are there any questions, comments, corrections? Yes, Sirvana Bindu Prabhu.
That for me, as kind of a neutral observer, I'm trying to be objective now, but to me it looks like that we are kind of training ourselves to become Krishna conscious, to always think about Krishna. And then, if you take the context of Bhagavad Gita, it looks like that this moment is kind of basing its philosophy on a book that is encouraging love. And so does it mean that we should be so Krishna conscious that we should be ready to kill other people? Is that what this moment is about?
Yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
Okay.
That's how it looks to me. It's a smile, just dance, chant, just be chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And we say yoga, meditation, then people take Bhagavad Gita, open the book. It's about killing. And fortunately, it's not the whole Bhagavatam, because there, it's a big carnage going on. Killing. So, fortunately, most people actually, they just give up. They got the book about yoga and meditation. Then they open up with some kind of war, and then this guy is confused, and Krishna is telling if you should fight. And then they just kind of, okay, I'll do that later. So that's my concern. Is that the hidden intention of Hare Krishna movement to make people Krishna conscious and to send them into war to kill other people?
So the question was, Srimad is asking, Bhagavad Gita is a book of violence, seemingly, that Krishna, or Arjuna is fighting a war in order to please Krishna. So is the hidden intention of the Hare Krishna movement to kind of make us become violent? Should we be ready to kill in order to become Krishna conscious?
No. Should we become Krishna conscious so that we are ready to kill
Should we,
people
yeah,
for some kind of sectarian religious purpose?
Yeah, should we become Krishna conscious so that we are ready to kill other people for some sectarian or religious purposes? Well, 5,000 years ago, Krishna came, and his mission was to uh, instruct people about devotional service, and also to kill demons, kill those who are against the, um, you know, the purpose of this universe, which is to allow us to become more God conscious. So 5,000 years ago, the method was killing. This was a way for many kind of irreligious people to no longer pose threats to those people who are trying to seriously cultivate spiritual life, because it was a great battle. As we know in Bhagavad Gita, the battle of Kurukshetra was in order to establish the reign of King Yudhishthira, who was pious and would allow the entire world to cultivate spiritual life. So um, there's in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna never urges Arjuna to commit violence. He just asks him to come to a transcendental platform um, to do his duty. And ultimately, the duty of a Kshatriya is to not to commit violence, but actually to protect the innocent and to allow for the principles of God consciousness, spirituality to become supreme and become cultivated in society. And they had previously tried for all sorts of peace measurements up to the last straw, so they had to go for violence. So that was 5,000 years ago, but for today, fortunately, Krishna came 500 years ago as Lord Chaitanya, and his mission was not to kill the demons, but to kill the demonic mentality of the people in general. And he did this simply by getting them to chant the holy names. And he didn't, his mission was not to kill anyone. And we are following in the line of Lord Chaitanya. We have a line of spiritual teachers coming down. And so it's important that we read Bhagavad Gita in order to understand spiritual science, but also hear from a bona fide representative of Lord Chaitanya, who's going to allow us to understand the Bhagavad Gita clearly. Any bona fide spiritual master, he will not say that, you should be, the goal is to like commit violence or anything like that. The goal for us is to rid people of their kind of atheistic thoughts in nature just by simply delivering to them the holy names. So that's, in a sense, that's our killing. We're giving them, we're using the weapon of the holy name to kill the mentalities in people. Yeah. Is that accurate, Prabhu?
You mean wrong mentality?
Yeah, wrong mentality. Yeah.
Because you cannot kill mentality. Okay.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So does it mean, since we are, as you said, we are in the context of Lord Chaitanya's teaching more than perceive. So in what does it mean that Arjuna's example is irrelevant for us? Or if it's relevant, how is it relevant?
Yeah, I would say it's relevant in the sense of Arjuna representing one, in the beginning Arjuna was very much bewildered and questioning or he was dependent on his own mind and powers and like his own kind of reasoning for why he shouldn't engage in what Krishna was telling him to do. He was offering so many explanations. And similarly, we might offer so many explanations of why we shouldn't like take up spiritual life, or we might offer atheistic explanations as to why Krishna doesn't exist or something like that. But ultimately, Arjuna had to come to a humble position and admit that, I'm in such a, horrible position. I'm depending on you, Krishna. I'm your disciple, basically. And only when he came to that point of admitting his own weakness in Krishna's ability to instruct did Krishna actually impart spiritual knowledge to him. So similarly, we should follow in this methodology that we have to have a humble mood of service before any spiritual master might impart knowledge to us, because we have to be qualified for it. Yeah. Is that correct, Prabhu?
Yeah,
Thank you, Brian, for bringing so many nice examples of the Pandavas, how Maharaj Yudhishthir was always thinking to make Krishna famous. He went to the extent that he dared to organize that sacrifice, Rasuya. Even though he didn't have proper land, the land that was given to him was barren because of his piety and because of his um, adherence to the religious practices. He turned that into more opulent than the heavenly planets. It became Indraprastha, known as Indraprastha, as opulent as Indra. So he wanted to utilize that for glorifying Krishna, to show that the devotees of Krishna are not beggars. They can actually be the biggest rulers of the planet. Even after conquering the entire land after Kurukshetra war, he was always thinking, how can I bring back Krishna? Then, in the context of Rasve sacrifice, they invited Krishna to offer him the first worship in that sacrifice. The most important personality is offered the first worship. So he made it known in the assembly of all the kings in the world that he is the most important personality. That was really beautiful. Thank you. Can take one more. Yeah, go ahead. Take two.
You were telling about how we should accept some form of discomfort. We should be comfortable with some form of discomfort for Krishna. And you gave the example of how Prabhupada went through so much discomfort. At age 70, he had the best facility for him to pass away to the next hour. But he gave up Vrindavan, he gave up Radha Damodar temple, he gave up Vrindavan, and he chose to go. And he faced so many difficulties and discomforts at every step, whether it's the meat in Sali Agarwal's refrigerator, where we had to place the prasadam next to it, whether it was the typewriter that was stolen, whether it was he having to do the entire service from Mangalarti to getting groceries, to cooking, to giving class, to cleaning the dishes, everything. As a 70-year-old person, actually, they didn't even have enough vegetables. They would buy one watermelon. Prabhupada would buy one watermelon. He would struggle to carry it. He would cut the fruits off it. He would use the peel.
Krishna is such serious Krishna consciousness or 80%. how does that work? Because we need to. The reason why we're 70% or 80% to begin with is that we're trying to like cultivate that desire in itself. How can Krishna fill that remaining desire? Because that's something we need to cultivate, right? As a marginal energy. So, do you have any thoughts on that, or does that make sense?
Yeah, we only make it like 70% Krishna conscious. How that we can actually go back to God.
Yeah, because I've heard that Krishna looks at what you not what you give away, but what you still have, right? Because you still need to work on those anarthas. So how can those be just taken away by Krishna? Because that's something we have to endeavor for, or is that not?
Yeah, well, I don't have like a complete understanding. Maybe somebody else can comment on me, but like the most I can say is that like, why can't Krishna do that?
I guess like for example, let's say I struggle with false ego isolating that part on the body. How can that just be taken away? Because we have to cultivate that, right? Or is that something that Krishna can? So can Krishna? I guess my question is, can Krishna? Let's say I'm part of this material and I'm contaminated. Can he, if he really wants, can he just like get the person back to God and completely purify him, like just like that? Like he has that power. Or is that something we have to definitionally have to cultivate?
I know that Lashitani was doing that. 100%. Of course, those people were living in on years. But maybe you can shed some light on this.
I think I think it will get a good answer. What exactly do you mean by this?
Oh, basically, do we have people? Don't we have individuals? We have to cultivate and remove those anarthas ourselves through this process to get to the 100%. But how can Krishna just impose the remaining 30% on us to be able to go back? Do they have that power to do that?
Krishna can do anything, but he doesn't want to break. So, actually, cleaning the heart, even without becoming Krishna conscious, is partially also possible. That's what personalists do.
Yeah.
So through heavy austerity, when Krishna is so magnanimous that if somebody wants to become spiritual or even liberated without loving him, Krishna says that you can also do that. It's there. That's an option. But that's not a happy option.
I guess the love of God has to be there. That can't be given to us. Is that also given?
Well, love of God, everything. The love of God is the ultimate development of God. And what is the beginning of God? It's faith. It's Shraddha. So there's this scale of from Shraddha, right? So all these things are developing by the mercy of Christ. That's like Krishna does Kaviraj Goswami. By causeless mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, one gets in the seed or initial impetus for devotion. And when that seed kind of sprouts, it becomes strong. Okay. So it's all Krishna's mercy all the time. So it's not that. So this is the scale, and now you have to work out.
Yeah.
Work out your jaw, and it's not mechanical because the whole bhakti process is cooperation. our deliverance from material world and developing love of God. It's mutual cooperation between the willing devotee and Krishna. So it's mere mercy all the time. It's not that we have to come to 75, and then if we come to that level, Krishna will help us. Krishna is helping us all the time. And actually, initial impetus, we are also getting from Krishna. So Krishna's mercy is all the time. But the more we advance, then Krishna, the more we advance, or the more we are sincere, Krishna understands, okay, this person is consciously wanting to get back.
So basically, it's until Krishna is pleased. It could be now, it can be.
Krishna is pleased all the time with someone who takes some bhakti. Even Bhagavad Gita says, Atnidam me priya. So devotee, one who takes the bhakti process, is very dear to me already. But there are levels of being pleased. Just like, for example, somebody goes to elementary school, first grade, and he gets A in school. For what?
Very elementary.
Or 2 + 2
That's 4.
So, is that important? I think it is. It's very important. But because he's doing his best at his level. So, parents are pleased, teacher is pleased, child is pleased, but they're on next level. So we should try to be steady on our level and gradually advance. So basically, Krishna is pleased when we gradually advance to the level of pure devotion. So, and then it's up to Krishna. Sometimes Krishna wants pure devotees to stay in this world. And sometimes people who are not so pure or who were not initially pure, he takes them back to God, like Arjuna. And then there are devotees who take birth again, maybe in some universe where Krishna's. And I think his pastimes. Or Krishna sends a really serious devotee to have his spiritual master's mission. So, devotee is actually beyond Krishna. So, it's up to Krishna. Krishna is guiding us. For us, going back to God not is secondary, and primary thing is, are we willing to surrender to Krishna's will? And this project of developing us.
Jai.
Any online questions?
Bro, actually, since the laptop got disconnected, I think the devotees were removed from the meeting. So no one is there currently.
Okay.